Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making a modern boat neck top. For this one, we kept things simple with a single stitch that's heavy on the texture and light on fuss. Speaking of, if you're fussing over your next make or two, you're in the right place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 180 grams of yarn. That's 400 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you prefer candles, wax melts, or incense. I prefer the coziness of candles. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and Trinity Stitch. This tutorial is made for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making an odd number chain that starts 1 inch underneath our underarm down to our waist. I need roughly 7 inches or 17 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 31. We've made our way all the way down with our chain. Now we're going to get started on our row 1. So chain 1. Now our first Trinity stitch is going to be done a little bit differently than the rest of them. So getting it started, we're all going to start with a single crochet into the chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook. So bring your hook down into that chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Now to do our first Trinity stitch, we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the same chain that our single crochet is into, so it will be occupied. So insert, yarn over, pull through for 2 loops on our hook. We ultimately want 4, so into that following chain, we're going to insert our hook in through there, pull through for 3, also into that following chain, insert, pull through for 4. When we have these 4 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through all 4, then chain 1 to complete this first Trinity stitch. Now this is going to be the way we're always going to do the first one unless stated otherwise, so let's do the second one, which is done a little bit differently. So starting with inserting our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, so it will be occupied, we're going to insert our hook in through there, yarn over, and pull through for 2 loops. We want 4 loops again, so into that following chain, we're going to insert, pull through for 3, following chain, insert, pull through for 4. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1 to complete our second Trinity stitch. The rest of them are going to be done exactly the same way as this one, so let's just do one more. Into the last stitch our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through. Into that following chain, we're going to insert, pull through for 3, following chain, pull through for 4. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1 to complete. Continue on with this Trinity stitch until we all have 2 chains left. We've made our way all the way down with our row 1, leaving the last 2 chains. Now we're going to complete the last Trinity stitch with an increase. It is going to start off the same way as all of our other ones, so start by inserting our hook into the same last chain that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, into that following chain, pull through for 3, following chain, which should be our last, pull through for 4. From here, yarn over, pull through all 4. For the last one, instead of doing a chain 1, since this is the increase end, all we're going to do is 3 half double crochets into that same last chain, so into that occupied stitch. So we pulled through all 4. All we're going to do from here is yarn over, into that last chain, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. That is our first half double crochet. We're going to do 2 more. So yarn over, into that same last chain, pull through 3, and then 1 more, yarn over, same last chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Our row 1 is now complete. We should all have 2 more stitches than chains that we made, and our following row, which is our even number row, isn't going to have any increases or decreases. So to get our row 2 started, chain 1 and flip our work. Now the first Trinity stitch is always going to start with a single crochet, so just into the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert with a single, then we can get started on the actual Trinity stitch. So starting with the same stitch that our single crochet is into, we're going to insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through again for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 4, chain 1 to complete our first Trinity stitch. The next one, we're going to insert our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and chain 1. Now we're going to continue on with this Trinity stitch until we all have 2 stitches left. We are at the end of our row 2. We should all have 2 stitches left. Now, like I said, all of our even number rows aren't going to have any increases or decreases. So to close off our non-increase or decrease rows, what we're going to do is start off our Trinity stitch per usual. So into that same last stitch our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, which should be our last, pull through. We should all have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. Now for the last one, we are not going to close off with a chain 1. That's going to give us some wonky numbers. So just single crochet into that same last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into. Now it's completed. From here, we're going to repeat our 2 previous rows. So getting them started, chain 1, flip your work. Starting off our first Trinity stitch with a single crochet. Then just to do it quickly, into that same stitch that our single crochet is in, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through for 4 loops, yarn over, pull through 4, chain 1. Then to do the next, into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, next, pull through, next, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, chain 1. Continue with this Trinity stitch until we have 2 stitches left to do our increase together once more. We made our way down with our row 3, leaving the last 2 stitches. To do our increase together again, we're going to start off our Trinity stitch per usual. Into the last stitch our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, which should be our last, pull through for 4, yarn over, pull through 4. For the increase, it's going to be 3 half doubles into that last stitch, yarn over, into that last stitch with 1, same last stitch with our second, same last stitch with our third. And our following row is going to be our even number row, so no increases and no decreases. From here, continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have a portion that can reach from mid-underarm over to the front of our body, so roughly where a bra strap or a tank top strap would lay. Then I'll meet you back right after an odd number row, then we can get started on the neckline. We are back. My underarm is complete. I have a total of 9 rows. My width is roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters, and now we can get started on the neckline portion. So we all should have ended along the top. What we're all going to do is chain 2. That's going to be a chain 2 for every size. That's going to count as stitches for the following row. Then once we all have our chain 2, we're going to block off that last chain and chain 1, and then we're going to do a row of non-increase or decrease Trinity stitch all the way down. So let's do that together. So for everyone, into that second chain from our hook, or the one that we blocked off, insert your hook with a single crochet. This is going to be our first Trinity stitch. Everything is per usual. Inserting your hook into that same stitch that our single crochet is in, pull through, next stitch, pull through, and next stitch, which should be the first one from our previous row, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, chain 1. Then from here, just do our regular Trinity stitch row all the way down. Like I said, no increases and no decreases. So our first row for our neckline is complete. Before we move on to the following row, make sure you insert a stitch marker into the top of this row just so we know where the neckline starts. From here, chain 1, flip our work. Do our Trinity stitch all the way up, and I will meet you back when we have 4 stitches left. We've made our way down and left 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left. Now we're all going to do our Trinity stitch decrease of 3. So this is going to start off the same way as our normal Trinity stitches. So inserting our hook into the last stitch our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, following stitch, pull through, following stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. We should have 2 stitches left over. From here, yarn over, pull through 4. Now we're just going to do a decrease, which is a decrease of 3 half doubles, basically. So yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, into that following stitch, which is second to last, pull through, and then into our following stitch, which is our last. Pull through. We should all have 5 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through all 5, and that is our decrease. Now for this portion of our neckline, we're going to be decreasing into every 4th row. So we just did a decrease here. We want to make sure that we're always inserting a stitch marker into the top of our decrease rows. And everyone's following 3 rows will have no increases and no decreases. So just to show you guys, since I have my back panel already completed, this is a decrease row that we just completed together. We're going to do 1, 2, 3 rows with no increases and no decreases. Then I'll meet you back to do our following decrease row. We are back. We have just completed our 3 non-increase / non-decrease rows. So what we're going to do from here is just another decrease row together. Now we all should have ended along the bottom. From here, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work, do our Trinity stitch all the way up, and I'll meet you back when we have 4 stitches left. We are at the end of our decreased row and should have all left 4 stitches. Now to do our decrease of 3 once more, we are going to complete the last Trinity stitch first of all, and we're going to get started with our last Trinity stitch the same way as all the other ones. So into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, next, pull through, and next, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, then yarn over. Insert our hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 5 loops. And since this is a decrease, don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of this row. From here, it is going to be a repeat of our 4 previous rows. So 3 rows with no increases and no decreases, and then a row that ends on a decrease. We're going to continue to repeat these 4 previous rows until we have a portion that can stretch from mid-underarm over to the side of the base of our neck. Now it obviously doesn't need to touch it, it just needs to be aligned with the side, and I'll meet you guys back right after we finish up a decrease row so we can work on the middle portion of our neckline. We are back and the decrease side of our neckline is complete. Now I have a total of 19 rows, my width is roughly 5 inches or 13 centimeters. Now we're going to get started with the width of our neckline. So this isn't going to have any increases or decreases, so all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, do our Trinity stitch rows with no increases and no decreases like I said until this reaches the other side of the base of our neck. Then I'll meet you back right after an even number row. We can get started on the increase side together. We are back and we have just completed the width of our neckline. Now I have a total of 28 rows. This width is roughly 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Now we're going to do the increase side so we can mirror this side over here. So since we should all be along the bottom, what we're all going to do for the following row, which is going to be our increase row, we're going to do our Trinity stitch all the way up, leaving the last 2 stitches. It's going to be done exactly the same way as the underarm portion, so I'm just going to do it with you as a refresher. So we've made our way all the way down, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now we're going to do our increase. So just like the underarm, it's going to start off the same way as all of our other Trinity stitches. Inserting your hook into the last stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, which should be our last, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, then into that same last stitch, 3 half double crochets. Yarn over, into that last stitch with 1, same last stitch with 2, same last stitch with 3. And just like how we did for the decrease side, since this is an increase, we are going to be inserting our stitch markers into the top of these rows. And once we have that completed, we're basically going to be mirroring the decrease side. So we will have 3 non-increase rows, Then our fourth row will be the same exact thing as this increase row here. We're going to continue to repeat those 4 rows until we have the same amount of rows as these decrease rows. Then I'll meet you guys back so we can get started on the underarm. So we are back. I have just completed the increase side of my neckline. Now we're all going to finish this up with our underarm. So first things first, for every size we are going to be inserting our stitch marker into the second stitch from the top because we did a chain 2 on this side. Then what we're going to do, since we should all be along the bottom, is do our Trinity stitch all the way up. Then I'll meet you back when we have 4 stitches left right before our stitch marker. We've made our way up with our first underarm row, leaving 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now let's do our decrease. So it's going to start off the same way as all of our other Trinity stitches. Inserting our hook into the last stitch our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. We should have 2 stitches left. Yarn over, pull through 4, then a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over. Into that same stitch that our last Trinity stitch was worked into, insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, which should be our last stitch, pull through. Now from here we should have 5 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through all 5, and that's it. This is the same decrease that we did for the neckline, and for the underarm portion we're going to be decreasing into every other row. So for the following row, chain 1, flip our work, and just do our Trinity stitch all the way down, no increases, no decreases. Then continue to repeat those 2 rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as the first underarm portion that we made. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, and I'll meet you back. We are back. We have just completed the entirety of our front panel. Now my total width is roughly 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters. And once we have 1 completed, we're going to make a second one that is exactly the same, making sure we are inserting our stitch markers into the same stitches as well. Once we have the second one completed, I'll meet you back to seam it all up together. So we are back. We have just completed both our front and back panel, and now we're going to seam it together. So go ahead and place your front panel on top of your back panel, then insert your hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back. We're then going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're going to do a single crochet seam. Inserting our hook into that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet. Doing that again, next stitch into the front, insert, next stitch into the back, insert, with a single, and continue doing this, making our way all the way up. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. So we have just completed seaming the entire piece together. Now we're going to get started on the prep work for our sleeve. So what we're all going to want to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning the seam that we just did is now along the inside. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the top corner stitch of our underarm. Now that is going to be in the top of that chain 2 that we made when we did the front panel. And then from here what we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every stitch, so 2 single crochets for everyone. Then working into our side rows, alternate between 1 to 2 single crochet into every side row. So getting that started, we are going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 just to secure. Then into that first stitch, insert with 1 single crochet. Into that following stitch with another single crochet. It should be 2 single crochets for every size. Then from here, alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets. So this is my first side row. We're all going to start with just 1 single crochet into that first side row. Then into our following side row, we're going to be doing 2 single crochets. So into that top loop, there is 1. Into that same top loop with a second. Let's do that again. Our following side row, insert with just 1 single crochet. Then our following side row, insert with 2. So there is 1, there is 2, and continue doing this until we're worked into our last side row that's right before our side seam. We've just made our way down with our first half of our single crochet row. We want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the first stitch that we made, not into that chain space. And also into that last stitch that we just made, just so we know where the middle is. Then from here, we're going to repeat, working our way back up. Into every side row, we are still alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets, but since we're working into the first side row on the other side of our seam, we are going to start with just 1 single crochet again. So this is my first side row on the other side of my side seam, so find that top loop, insert with just 1 single. don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch. So we have our 2 middle stitches. Then continue to alternate between 1 to 2, and then don't forget the 2 single crochets at the very end, and then I'll meet you back. So we have just made our way back up our underarm portion, and don't forget to insert a stitch marker into that last stitch that we just made. But now from here, we're going to make an odd number chain that reaches around our arm, that can reach the top corner stitch of the beginning of our prep row. Now I've already measured mine out. I need roughly 10.5 inches or 27 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 37. So now that we have our chain, we are going to slip stitch it into that chain 1 space that we made when we started our single crochet row. Now to connect it to the beginning of this row, we're going to slip stitch it into that chain space, not into that first single crochet because we don't want to take that stitch away. So into that chain space, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook with a slip stitch. That slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then we're all going to do a chain up of 1 and cut, then we can get started on the width of our sleeve. So right after we connected our chain and did a chain up of 1 and cut, what we're going to do is insert our hook into our stitch marker stitch that's at the beginning of the chain that we made. So all we did, since our single crochet row started on this side, is just insert our stitch marker into that stitch marker stitch that's nearest to the chain. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook and work into the chain. So like I said, my hook is in my stitch marker stitch. I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook and pull through. And now we're going to do our Trinity stitches into our chain the same way that we've done all of our other Trinity stitches. So just into that first chain, we're going to insert with a single crochet. Then from here, our first Trinity stitch, which is done exactly the same way as the beginning of our piece. Then we're going to do our Trinity stitch all the way down, leaving the last 2 stitches. So we've made our way down our chain with our Trinity stitches, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now, the increases that we're about to do are going to be done exactly the same way as the front and back panel, but I just wanted to say that you guys can increase or not increase. That is completely up to you, just depending on how wide or how comfy you want your sleeve to be. So I'm just going to do the increase with you guys, but you guys can implement it for any of the following rows that you'd like. So as a refresher for our increases, if you want to do it, it's going to start off the same way as all of our other Trinity stitches. Once we have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, then into that same last stitch an increase of 3 half doubles. That is our increase. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now the base is going to be that prep single crochet row that we did, working into our underarm. So that next available stitch should be our stitch marker stitch. How we're going to connect it is we're going to skip that following stitch, then into that next stitch insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect, and we can take out that stitch marker for now. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still does not count as a stitch. Flip our work, and then working on top of the previous row that we just made, do our Trinity stitch all the way back. Go ahead and get the following row completed, then I'll meet you back to remind you how we're going to connect it into the base together once more. Now we've just completed our row 2. For my row 2, I did not do an increase, but if you did an increase into row 2, that is completely fine. We're just here to remind you how we're going to connect it into the base. Now whenever we're connecting a row into the base, we're going to count up 2 available stitches. There's 1, there's 2, slip stitch into that second stitch. Then in order to work our way up to the following row, simply slip stitch up 1 stitch. Now none of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, that's just to connect. But when we have those 2 slip stitches into the base, we're going to flip our work and then do our Trinity stitch all the way back down and then repeat the connection on the other side, increasing if you guys need to. Now, as one really quick tip, it may seem like the connection into the base is uneven, but since the total amount of stitches that we should have had from our first single crochet within our underarm all the way up and on the other side should be in multiples of 3, the way that we're connecting it into the base should make our way all the way down, and everyone's last row should be worked into our 2 stitch marker stitches. And also, like I said, if you guys need to increase, go ahead and do that into any rows that you guys need to. Once when I'm completed with this portion, I will meet you back to let you guys know what rows I increased into, but just continue to try this piece on, making sure that the sleeve is nice and snug. So go ahead and get this completed. I'll meet you back once we're worked into our 2 middle stitch marker stitches. We are back. we have just completed the first portion of our sleeve. We have done our Trinity stitches all the way down until we are worked into our stitch marker stitches. Now just to let you guys know, I only increased into 2 rows, which was my first one, the one that we did together, and into my third. All the other rows that I had, I did not do any increases or decreases into. Now from here, we're just going to continue to extend our sleeve to get the sleeve length that we want. So it's going to be done pretty much the same way, just the connection is going to be a little bit different. So from where we are, we're going to chain 1, flip our work. We're going to do the same Trinity stitches all the way around. It's a non-increase row, so just make your way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back just to show you how we're going to connect it. So we've made our way all the way around with our sleeve row. Now all we're going to do to close off this row is slip stitch it into that chain space that we made when we started this row off. So we're not going to be working into the base anymore because we shouldn't have any more stitches. So into the beginning of this row, we should have all done a chain 1 and flipped the work. Find that chain 1, slip stitch into there. Now this row is complete. From here, chain 1, flip our work, and then do our Trinity stitch all the way back around. Continue to repeat this row, so with no increases and no decreases until we get the sleeve length that we want. Once we have that, do a chain up of 1 cut, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. I have just completed my sleeve. I have a total of 15 rows. The sleeve length is roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters. I did do a chain up of 1 cut and repeated the same thing on the other side. Once we have both of our sleeves completed, next we can get started on the top band. So first things first, make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the stitches along the neckline. It doesn't matter which one. Then all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every stitch, then work our way across, alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row so we can take out all of our stitch markers now. So just to do the first few side rows together, we're going to pull our yarn through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. We're going to start by finding our first side row, and the first side row that I have right here is the single crochet row that we have in between our sleeve and the body. Remember that that counts as a stitch as well. So I'm going to find that single crochet row. I'm just going to trace that all the way up and insert with just 1 single crochet. Then we have our side Trinity stitch rows. From there, we're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side Trinity stitch row. So finding our first side row, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. Into the next, find that top loop and insert with 2. So there's 1, same top loop, there's 2. Again, this is my next side row, find that top loop with 1. My following side row, insert with 2, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making my way all the way around, remembering to put 1 single crochet into every stitch once we reach the top of our sleeves. Make your way all the way around, then slip stitch into that chain space, and I'll meet you back. So we have made our way all the way around with our single crochet row, and now we're going to get started on the top band, which is just going to be slip stitches. So right after we have slip stitched into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain the height that we like for the top band to be. Now this can be as long or as short as you like. I'd like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making chain 5. Now that we have our chain, block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then put 1 slip stitch into every chain. So finding that second chain from our hook, bring your hook down into that second chain, yarn over and gently pull through both loops on our hook. Again, into that next chain, insert your hook, yarn over and gently pull through both. Continue on with this until we don't have any more chains left to work into. And as a really quick tip, we want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly, otherwise the following row will be too tight for us to work into. We have just worked our way all the way down our chain. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So all we're going to do is find that next available stitch into the base and insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then we need to work our way up to the following row, so slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and now put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, not those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us, then yarn over, pull through everything. Again, next stitch is back loop, insert, yarn over, and gently pull through. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and I'll meet you back at the base. We are back and our first 1, 2, 3 rows are complete. Now to connect it into the base just once more, finding that next available stitch, insert and slip stitch it into there. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Continue on with our 2 previous rows, making our way all the way around with no increases and no decreases. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back to seam it all up. So we have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it up. So let's all make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then insert your hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything, and we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam. So inserting our hook into that first available stitch's front loop, or the loop that's nearest to us, insert. Into the back panel, inserting our hook into that first available stitch's back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3. Again, insert your hook into that next available stitch's front loop, next available stitch's back loop within the back panel. When we have these 3 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3, and continue this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now that the shoulder band is complete, the last thing we're going to do is our bottom band. So first things first, make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom, and we're going to start with a single crochet row, so simply put 1 single crochet into every side row. Now just to do the first few, find that first side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to insert in through that top loop and insert with a single crochet. This is my following side row. I will find that top loop and insert with 1 single crochet again, and that's it. Continue with 1 single crochet into every side row, then when we don't have any more, slip stitch into that chain space. Now as a really quick tip, this single crochet is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So when it's completed, try a piece on, making sure that everything is still fitting nicely. If it's a little bit too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. Our single crochet row is complete. From here, our bottom band is actually going to be done exactly the same way as the top band. So all we're going to do right after we slip stitched into that chain space is simply make a chain the length that we'd like for the bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to make a chain 15. Then I'm going to do back loop slip stitch rows, making my way all the way around with no increases and no decreases. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it up. We are back. We've just made our way all the way around with our bottom band. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it up, but this seam is going to be done exactly the same way as the shoulder band seam, so an outside loop slip stitch seam, so I've already gotten mine completed. We're just going to make sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up. Then do our outside loop slip stitch seam till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then the last thing you're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoy the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!